Good afternoon. We are so glad to have you join us today for our TUG Connects 365 programming. As you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of Infor distribution software users. We have all heard the phrase knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. Today is but one of our many in-depth sessions for our TUG Connects 365 series. TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence every single day. Now that's a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do each and every day. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Robin McGuire, who is our TUG eCommerce group leader, and Mark Law, our TUG vice chairperson. Go ahead and take it away, Robin.
All right, let me get my screen up here for you. All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to have everybody on, and it's a privilege to be working with Mark today to talk to you guys about managing your product data for e-commerce and beyond. And we have some really great conversations to start. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the CIO at Reinders. I've been the TUG e-commerce group leader for I think 4 or 5 years. I've worked as the old SIG Toro distributor group leader for many years, and so I've been around TUG. And I have been working at Reinders for 20 years, and I've been working in e-commerce for 8 years, and I've grown quite a bit in that. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of my experiences, but also hearing more about yours. And with that, Mark, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about you and your experiences.
Thanks very much, Robin, and it's good to speak to everybody today. It's a little bit strange speaking to everybody. I've normally got a pint in my hand when we're having these type of discussions. As Robin said, I'm Mark Law. I'm the Group IT Director for the Haley Group in the UK. We're an industrial MRO distributor. I've been in industrial distribution, man and boy really. I started virtually straight from school, like I know a lot of people in distribution. And once upon a time, data didn't matter, but obviously over the years it's becoming more and more important, and hence my interest in this particular subject.
Fantastic. This happens to be the first of its kind, this kind of webinar, and Mark and I have stepped up to the challenge, and we're hoping to get a lot of engagement with the group today. And this is an open user discussion, so we really value everybody's experience and would love to get your input and have a really nice collaborative meeting. Your mics are muted and you can't unmute yourself. But there is a Q&A and chat session that we would love you to get familiar with and throw your questions in there. Raise your hand if you want to talk, and Gloria, our moderator, is going to be able to allow you to talk and to have your video shown, etc. So our goal today is to have really great conversations, and I think that's, for me personally, it's about engaging the group, learning, talking about some really great content around data and PIM, and I think we'll get started here. And one of the things, there are going to be a couple of polls. And if you've participated in these webinars, I'm sure you've seen various polls, and we're going to try and minimize the time for these polls, but if you would please participate, I think it would be great to see everybody's feedback and gauge some interest. So with that, I think we'll start off with our first poll. I think Gloria has thrown that up there. And this is one I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, but we really would like to know, honestly, where you are, what you're doing over there. Are you sitting around in your pajamas? Top, bottoms, pajamas? Do you never do that? Did you ever get caught? This is just a fun way for us to kick it off. You should see the poll up there.
I'll be jumping into my pajamas straight after this call. I think it's a little bit later over here.
Absolutely, Mark. And you, what time is it over there for you, Mark?
It is 7:05. So
Right.
maybe a little bit early for my pajamas, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
Maybe
See how long this goes on for.
Absolutely. So here we go. Never, all right, never wins. But some of you were greatly honest, so we appreciate that. Thank you for participating, and here we go. I'm going to hand it over to Mark and let him start off talking about data.
Okay, so data obviously comes in many shapes and forms. And data is becoming more and more important to businesses, whether it's customer data, delivery address data, but mainly today we're going to focus on product data, because that, certainly from my point of view, seems to be where things quite often get out of hand, really. But it's vital that we have accurate data, particularly in the age of e-commerce, where we've got to have good descriptions, and customers have got to be able to find the products we're selling. Certainly in my industry, once upon a time, everybody knew the part numbers. We sold a limited range of products, but now more and more people are selling more and more types of products. And certainly over these last few months, I think there's a lot of people getting into PPE and health and safety products and such like. So all of this is more and more data that we've got to get onto our system, and more importantly, get into a way where customers can actually find the product. And a PIM, or a product information management system, is really the key to that, having one source of good data.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about what a PIM is. You can see from the slide we gave a diagram, but I'm going to let Mark kind of roll into what is a PIM.
Yep. So as I said originally, I think the first thing about a PIM is it's your one source of the truth, really. We have more and more systems now that we're having to integrate, whether it's our ERP system, whether it's customer information that's coming into our business, and a range of different e-commerce solutions, our own websites, web stores such as Amazon, maybe even eBay. And the customers want a lot more about the products as well. It's more than a part number. They want dimensions. They want package sizes. They want the specifications. They might want health and safety documentations or certification. And having that information in one place helps us manage that information and be able to distribute it to customers when they need it.
Yeah, and I would add in there too that the ERP is not and cannot necessarily store all that product content needed to power these particular channels and elements. So the ERP, the PIM is built to house this kind of content, not the ERP.
Yeah, and just taking what Gloria was saying at the beginning here, I certainly am not professing to be the ultimate expert on this. So if you can think of different things that you want to chime in here about a PIM, how you use your PIM, perhaps there's a different set of data that we're not even thinking about, please jump in. We want as many people chipping into this so that we can all get some use out of it.
Definitely. So if you have questions, throw them out there. We're keeping an eye on that so we can keep everybody engaged, and we'd love to hear feedback from you guys. And talking about this centralized system that Mark has been discussing, that it not only houses this product data, but it also has the ability to source, standardize what you put in. You kind of clean it, you standardize it, and you can manage the delivery of that. So this slide kind of shows you what Mark was saying, the SKUs, the SKU data, the product data, the specifics, the product descriptions, images, videos, any kind of product content, guides, specification guides, sales sheets, whatever. You dump this data into the PIM and it gets scrubbed and transformed in the right formats out to the various channels. So we have e-commerce platforms. That's one of the ones that obviously primarily that we're all looking at. And, you know, particular selling sites like Google Shopping and Facebook catalogs and so forth, Amazon, eBay, you know, all the different types of marketplaces, and so forth. So, anything else to say about what a PIM is, Mark, before we...
Not necessarily, but perhaps I'll just tell you a little bit about my company's journey with data, really. I think when we first moved on to SX.e, when was it? 2008, I think it was. You know, we didn't really give a lot of consideration to data. So we transferred a lot of rubbish data from our old system. The company fortunately expanded massively over the next, what are we on, 12 years or so. And data, because not only do we expand in terms of more customers and more branches, we also start selling a lot more product. And it took us quite a bit of time really before we realized how important data was. We didn't have anybody really managing data, and we certainly didn't have a PIM. So what it meant to us is that we had lots of stuff in stock that our branches couldn't find. And basically we were buying stuff we already had in stock. So that was the thing that we started thinking about now. We need to manage our data better.
Yeah, and part of that sounds like potentially an internal ERP situation where, you know, purchasing and trying to figure that out. But the other, you know, one thing that I gathered from that is in our ERP, we learned a tremendous amount also about what various groups think is important to data. So for purchasing, they'll input, they're the ones creating the products in the ERP. They'll input the minimum amount of data in there to get the job done. Whereas what we're looking for, the rich content on the website and to feed the various channels, we need a lot more data. And then it goes back to, where does that data come from? Well, all we're getting from our manufacturers are is this spreadsheet, and it doesn't have any of those elements and any of those fields or features that you're looking for. Well, then we have to go back to, you know, working with the manufacturers to give us the right data. And it's amazing. I thought our business was the only business that had such a crazy silo structure at various times. But when you go into these large manufacturers and suppliers of this data, their marketing department has some of the data. Their ERP or their particular point of sale or something has some of the data, and they're very fragmented, just like we are. So trying to put all of this together to get the data, that's one of the things I've learned definitely about organizing some of this data.
I think that's true, and I don't know about you, but not all the manufacturers are particularly helpful, to be honest with you. You know, and I think especially the people you're dealing to as your day-to-day contacts, you know, the sales people, you know, they just don't get data, and quite often half the battle is getting to speak to the right person in the organization. You might notice that I keep peeking to one side. There's nobody sneaking up on me. I'm just trying to keep an eye on some of the questions, and we've had some good questions come through actually. Do you use workflow within your PIM and quality metrics on the data to determine which channels data is qualified to feed? Now, my comment on that, what we certainly started off doing, that was from Daniel Torres. Thanks very much, Daniel. What we did in our business is our starting point was just get as much data as we can. And then what we then started doing is sort of ranking that data in terms of, you know, it's just come from the manufacturers, it's cleansed enough for ERP, and then the final level that we had within that was, right, this data is now fit to use in e-commerce. So if anyone else wants to chip in on that, and if you want to raise your hand and talk on camera, I'm sure there's people that can offer contribution here.
For sure. Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that question? And for some reason, Gloria, I'm not able to see my Q&A.
Actually, I mean, Daniel's asked a couple of questions. Daniel, are you okay for us to put you on camera? Do you fancy just asking your questions to the group? He's hurriedly taking his pajamas off now, I reckon.
Putting on his suit coat on top.
Gloria, can you put Daniel on screen? I'm hoping he's not said no.
He has dropped off the participants list.
Oh,
So
no.
I think he might have had a challenge. Here he comes back in. Daniel, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make you a panelist for a moment, and that'll give you the opportunity to share your camera as well as your microphone.
If you're happy with that, of course. And you looks like he's muted at the minute, Gloria.
No worries. He should jump on here in a moment. He's appearing and disappearing on our panelist list. So
sorry about that. Y'all see me now? Or y'all?
No problem. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, Daniel, but you've asked a couple of questions, and it'd probably be better if you asked them rather than me just reading them off the screen.
Perfect. Hey, Daniel. Good to see you.
No, are they PJs? I'm trying to work out if they are PJs or not.
No, just t-shirt.
So yeah, you mentioned you're asking about workflows and metrics. Is that something you use within your business?
Yeah, so usually what we do is we try to do quality metrics on our ecom data to determine whether it's good enough for SX.e as the ERP, or whether it's good enough for print or for e-commerce, because they have different requirements. And just wondering if you put any like quality measurements on your data, or what elements are required for different channels.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from our point of view, we do that, and we let some horrible data into our ERP. I've got to say, because it's always we need to get these products on as fast as we can. But with e-commerce, yeah, we try to make sure it's got a good description. We've got things like weights and dimensions, because that's important to a lot of customers, and wherever possible a picture. And we do, as you mentioned there, we have like a different score. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but number 5 might be perfect data. We don't have many of them, but maybe 3 might be this is acceptable for e-commerce, even if it's not all there.
Yeah, and we've found that we've needed to collect quite a bit of data, that our vendors are good about getting us bits and pieces, but they never have a good complete set. And so we usually have to augment it with additional data or images that we take ourselves, because, vendors are in all sorts of different states. And, I don't know if y'all struggle with that too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that is a huge thing. And it's amazing to me that a lot of the manufacturers and vendors don't have quality images and quality data. So we do spend a lot of time internally, and we've kind of honed our focus in on kind of the 80-20 rule. So 20% of our products basically make up 80%. And so we start there and focus on that. We also look at our metrics, our quality metrics for those 20%. At least that's what we're focusing on all the time. And those are the ones also that we go after, chasing after the vendor and the manufacturer for some of that, or we realize we have to prioritize in-house development of that content.
Yeah, we've built quite a large team to deal with that at our company. So I understand your pain. It's just not it's not as easy as it appears to the PIM is just a starting point for.
And I think that's the interesting thing you mentioned there about having a team as well, because I don't know about your products that you sell. We sell just about everything now, and the problem is, yes, you've got a PIM and there's lots of them out there, but you need product knowledge quite often. You need product knowledge to be able to get the right information in the right format. And quite often we're having to take people, or we're trying to get people that are perhaps doing a valuable job within the business, maybe selling, for example, but we need their help to try and get the product data together. And we've done the same as you now. We've had to put a team together, and they're learning the product, so it gets easier as we go along. But product knowledge we found is a real key.
Yeah. For sure. And to go one step beyond, we have scheduled kind of regular meetings with both product managers, sales managers, and even, some sales reps to try and get on, a focus on those particular products. And, we know that time is a commodity, and that's a really tough one to get sometimes.
Okay. Thanks very much. Oh, the other thing you've mentioned,
Well,
Daniel.
I didn't mean to.
No, no. You know, this is a round table. Even it's a strange format for us to be doing it in. As I said, normally we'd be sat around the table, possibly we're eating some breakfast or maybe with a pint in our hand. So. The other question you mentioned as well, which I think is a good one, and this is something we're looking at now, is about, do we use our PIM to populate our ERP? So you mentioned ICSP and ICSW. Obviously, that's the SX.e terminology. I'm sure there's people on other platforms, but we are just starting to go down that route, to be honest with you, because being able to quickly create part numbers, particularly the one-offs, really, not even the, you know, when we get a file from a supplier, we can generally get that into shape relatively quickly. It's more, the bigger challenge we have is when a branch has got something, they want to start stocking it, it's one item, coming up with a process, and what we're trying to do is build it into our PIM so it can extract information from the PIM to create the products in SX.e, because we don't have everything on the PIM in SX.e. We've got much more in our PIM than we do on SX.e.
For sure.
Yeah, and we do as well. So what we do is we have a part number request form that feeds directly into our PIM, the rudimentary data. So anyone can request products in the company, and they go into a holding area in our PIM for approval. Once they're approved by the PIM team, then we're syncing every 10 minutes to SX.e. We don't author any products in SX.e anymore. We author them all in the PIM, and we also feed our e-commerce site, or several e-commerce sites actually, from the PIM.
Just a quick question: are you doing that through APIs when you create them in SX.e?
Not yet, right?
Okay.
So it's a bit of a direct pool right now. We're rewriting it through APIs right now. So we're going to be hitting the item master bod and building that data to go into SX.e in the future. But we have about 9,000 or 10,000 lines of code to do our product synchronization. Then we build all our PDSC records, all our PDSB records for our pricing models, and do all of that in an automated way.
Yeah. I might be back in touch about that when we start. You might be able to help us a bit more, because we're just starting to look at the APIs now, actually.
Okay.
Yep, same here. Well, I think we'll roll into, I appreciate, Daniel, don't go too far away, because I know throughout the years that we've had great interactions with you, and you have a lot to offer, so don't go too far away. But I do want to see if we can't kind of pull the rest of the audience that's out there, and we do have a couple of polls geared up regarding what you're using currently for a PIM.
I think Robin Peterson must have actually seen your notes, because that's the very question he's asked.
Is that right? Fantastic. So if Gloria, you want to pop the poll up, we're going to ask you guys to, do you have an online e-com store? And hopefully that answer is yes, right, Mark? I mean, what are we doing here if we're not trying to sell products and try to, grow our sales and grow our business?
Yep. Though I think, to be fair, I think if you'd asked us a couple of years ago, we probably would have said yes, but I'm not sure we really did.
True.
Yeah.
And this is, this doesn't show and go into many levels, like where are you in the process and so forth, but do you have an online e-commerce store? And let's see what the majority of the group shows here. Yes, and there are some on the call that does not have one. So some of this information that that we are going over might be a little more in depth as to, where do I get started and how I do this. This is really just kind of conversation, and maybe in the future you might want to know a little bit more about some of the basics and getting started. But we do.
Sorry, Robin, for cutting across you there. The only thing I would say is that I wish we had looked at our data before we started looking at e-commerce. So I think, if people are looking at it now, I think that's a great thing to be doing, to be honest, because data has definitely been our biggest challenge in our the technical solutions. There's lots of different technical solutions out there for e-commerce, but if you haven't got the right data and you haven't got the right information, it's a real struggle.
Absolutely. And that's key to this presentation today, is that we're really focusing on data and how to enhance that data, and that is the place to start. We do have another poll, if you could pop that up, Gloria. A couple more here. We're just trying to figure out what the crowd is like here. How many SKUs do you have? Either in your ERP, and if you don't have an e-commerce store, just wanted to give you an opportunity there to participate. How many SKUs? How many SKUs do you have, Mark? What are you working with?
Oh, far too many. Last time I looked, I think it was something like 800,000. But how many do we sell? That's a different question. And a lot
True.
of our product managers, they'll take a catalog in, I don't know, Stanley Tools, for example, and they insist on putting every single item in the catalog, certainly onto our ERP, not necessarily onto e-commerce. But obviously, it makes your catalog grow very, very quick, and it also makes your ICSPs and ICSWs grow very, very quick as well.
Oh, for sure. That has been a big struggle with us. I think it belongs online if it's valid and it has, an opportunity and prospect. But a lot of our managers just want to put every single product in the database, both in the ERP and online, and it does cause a tremendous amount of work in ICSP and ICSW. What were the results of that? So we have there's a few folks in that 1,000 to 500,000. Nobody here has a crazy amount.
I wasn't allowed to vote.
Oh, you would have been in that category.
It
huh?
would have said one.
Okay, I think we fall somewhere between the 100,000 and 500,000 in the middle of those two. So, all right, fantastic. Well, thanks for the participation. And again, before I switch to the next slide, I just wanted to say, Gloria, I'm not seeing any of the Q&A. So I'm not trying to dodge that. I'm not seeing it.
I think I am watching them all, but if anyone's getting ignored, please just ask again. I'll try and keep an eye out on them.
Fantastic.
Let me reassure you that nothing has populated yet in the question bank. Anyone that has had questions has dropped them into the chat window. What I'd like to remind everyone very quickly, because this is a new portal for us, is that in order for all the attendees to see what it is that you're posting in questions or comments, which could be great for sharing amongst one another, please make sure that you are posting on the drop-down menu to all panelists and attendees, unless you specifically just want to communicate with the panelists to make a point or to be invited to come on and jump on to the roundtable with your camera and your audio turned on. So back to you folks.
Fantastic. So we talked more about, we've talked about what is a PIM, and I think in general, everybody gets the concept, and there's different sizes of PIM. Sometimes the PIM is embedded into the CMS or part of the tool. Sometimes it's a separate PIM, a more enterprise PIM that is more robust. But and especially for some of you who have not been using a PIM, let's talk a little bit about when to do that.
I think the first thing to say, we are talking about PIM. We're talking about a tool, and that can vary. To be honest with you, I've seen things from, Access databases, and in many cases, your ERP may be your PIM, especially if you've got perhaps not so complicated or not such a huge quantity. It is possible to have some sort of PIM within your ERP, especially if you're using proper rules to let things get put into that. But certainly as you get into higher volume of products and more complicated products, a PIM really is essential, because you do need this one point of truth, if you like. Especially when you start getting into, complex product relationships. So, if you sell this, you need to sell this, all these types of things, things that go into kits. And ERPs are great, but quite often they just do not have the depth of data that you need for all the wide range of products that you might be selling.
Correct. And many of us are on the journey to CSD, move into the cloud, and we do recognize that we have additional opportunities with features and functionality, and even then we might not still be able to hold all of that data that we need for e-commerce and for our additional marketing channels. But and then you might be on an old legacy, outdated ERP that you're not going to be able to get to the cloud soon. But if you want to be competitive and have an e-commerce store, being able to get that data refreshed and organized and in a centralized place and cleaned, that's key to it. What else? Anything else on that? Anybody else have some feedback on?
Nothing to do with this particular question, but I noticed that Jeffrey Tolhurst has not been able to vote on the web version of Zoom. So that's probably something we maybe need to look at. I don't know if it is possible. It might be a pop-up blocker perhaps that's stopping that happening. I was going to suggest you email them in, but I don't want to get into that whole mail-in voting controversy.
Oh yeah, we don't want to. We know many things can go awry with that, Mark. So I think we'll.
I'm saying nothing. I'm keeping out of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, fantastic. So those are just some ideas. Maybe if you're saying, do I need a PIM? Why do I need to be looking at this? Just some ideas to kind of help you move in that direction, I think. Here is just another graphic kind of demonstrating the various types of data sources that you might feed into a PIM. And it's not just your ERP, and it could go the other way. So what Daniel was talking about is the reverse of this, which it could go the other way. This particular graphic is just showing the examples of data sources that feed into the PIM and then going out to various channels. So Daniel was kind of talking about the opportunity for a robust PIM to be able to move data and update in various directions. Anybody have anything else to talk about on that?
Robin, I understand that you and Mark can't access a question bank, so I'm going to jump in here and read Sherry Nichols' question. She says, if so, can you speak into your experience with the Infor PIM, please?
I think. Sorry, I can't see I think Sherry's first question was, anyone out there on CSD and Rhythm in the process of implementing, and if so, can you speak to your experience with the Infor PIM? So, is anybody using the Infor PIM?
Raise your hand. Maybe raise your hand if you're using it.
And then quickly get your T-shirt on, and we'll put you on air if you want. We have a hand raised.
All right.
All I'm going to work out now is how I see who's raised a hand.
Yeah, these tools are fantastic. I've looked at Rhythm. I have been through a ton of demos. I think ultimately my goal and our goal would be to use the technology stack that Infor wants to include. I just have not found that tool for our
I think Catherine's chipped in that it's not the Infor PIM but an in-river PIM. Thanks, yes. Catherine.
Yep. Right. And I think as time rolls on and we actually get more users on Rhythm and using the in-river PIM, I think that we're going to have a lot more experience. So,
if I can just talk about PIMs again. If people would like to talk about the PIMs they're on, we've had a question from Terry Michelson. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. Apologies if I'm not. Just talking about searching for products within PIMs. Now, I'm guessing your search capabilities will really depend on which PIM in particular that you're using. So I don't know if anyone's got if would like to just talk about a particular PIM, especially if it's got good searching facilities within it.
So I'm looking at that too from Terry. When you have a lot of products, finding one that meets the customer specs can sometimes be difficult. Can you search by keyword or some other way of finding things? I think your part of your e-commerce package and platform should definitely include a robust search, and not only a search but an ability to do sorting, boosting, and burying. And that is a huge effort because there's so many components to that, right, Mark? We're talking about what you call it, what the manufacturer calls it, what the industry, maybe out some of the customers and contractors and so forth, call it something different. So it's marrying up all these various keywords and keyword phrases, maybe sometimes translating and getting that search to find the exact product that you need. And I think a PIM definitely, being able to segment and to drill down into those particular things and have the attributes and the things to allow for search. Our particular PIM uses, it automatically builds that search criteria, but you definitely can go in there and tweak it. It learns various terms, and over time it will build up a robust organic type of search. But there's definitely a lot of manipulation that you need, to really make sure that the product search that you search for is showing up. What, Mark,
Sorry,
do you have some?
I was just going to say the other thing as well is whether it's your PIM or, I mean, we built our own PIM, but whether it's your PIM or your e-commerce site, there's quite a lot of bolt-on tools that you can get. So you might have an e-commerce platform or a PIM that doesn't quite do what you want, but there's things like Easy Ask, for example, and there are quite a few different people like that where they can help you make your searches better, and some of them are really clever using AI. Some of them you have to do a bit of manipulation yourselves, but there's quite often, as I say, tools that you can bolt on to your PIM or your e-commerce site or wherever that might be.
Correct. All right, fantastic. Well, let's slide forward here and talk a little bit about some of this data. Mark, you were talking about a tremendous amount of data, your data journey going from, what you start with in the ERP, and kind of manicuring and enriching the data. These are the types of things that we might be talking about. Essential product data. So obviously SKUs, and that goes back to some of the things that I was saying. Is it whose SKU? Is it do you have the ability to use customer products and customer SKUs and so forth? UPC, names, titles, and descriptions. We'll talk a little bit later about how to further enrich and enhance and optimize these things. But taxonomy, relationships, and how you categorize, how you label the various variations, that is key, Terry, to what you were talking about with the customer being able to find the product and the information that they are specifically looking for. The ease of being able to navigate and to get to those products. And of course, we all have, various product lines, but technical specs and sales information, and this can go to pricing. I think pricing in itself is maybe something a little bit more, a larger avenue than maybe testimonials, customer reviews, star reviews, things like that. But these are all various types of things that you should consider even prior to getting a PIM and an e-commerce platform. These are things. This is a great slide if you're in the beginning of your journey to say, what things do I need to consider around data? And this might give you a good place to start. Is this multilingual? Is it cross borders? Do I have to consider translations? And of course, digital assets, video, rich images, lots of details, that is key today in the market. And I don't care, what product you have generally. If you're looking to grow your business, and as users and customers grow with online entities, that's going to be key. What are your takeaways? What do you think are most important, Mark, in regards to some of this data that needs to be managed?
I certainly think about when you're thinking about your taxonomy. Again, this was a real challenge for us because actually that can change depending on the type of customer you're talking to. You know, we always started us that we'd list our taxonomy by the products, you know, our product grouping and so on. But sometimes the customers don't think that way. The customers are thinking a different way. So I don't know, if we're talking about tools, for example, we might go down you know, I don't know, engineering tools, non-engineering tools to get to shovels and garden forks, whereas they might be thinking, oh, where's my taxonomy for garden products? So it's good as well if you can have a PIM that can allow, or an e-commerce site that can allow perhaps for multiple taxonomy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, is anybody else out there? I'm trying to look at the chat here. Daniel, you have anything specific to say about any one of these types of data as we push through? I'm putting you on the spot, Daniel. I understand that.
Well, we know he's stressed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll let
he's
him.
Back. He's coming back.
Is he coming back? All right.
Coming back. Hooray!
There he is. He needs to be unmuted, though, I see. So.
Yeah. When y'all switch me to panelist, it locks me out and brings me back in. Taxonomy is really important, and you know, I understand what you're saying, that people want to look at it different ways. We use brands quite a bit, so people want to look for, you know, 3M or Loctite, and so what we've actually done is we have 2 taxonomies on our website, so you can search by the regular 3-tier taxonomy, or you can reverse it and look for a brand and then look for subcategories within that brand. So we've actually done it both ways, so customers can find our products. But usually, if you spend a lot of time on the taxonomy, it's probably the best place to start with a PIM, because you don't realize how you're going to have to organize all the different pieces of information, and certain pieces of information are less relevant for different categories of products. So you may need a lot more documents in one category versus attributes in another category. So.
Right. I think taxonomy, your point is very valid. That's a great place to spend your time in the beginning, because throwing all the data up there and not having, you know, having it organized, categorized, grouped, you know, people aren't going to be able to find your information. So I think that is key for sure. Anything else on here that strikes a chord with you, Daniel?
Well, I mean, we're mostly industrial, so on the digital asset side, you know, we usually don't need more than, you know, 1 or 2 pictures. But yeah, any digital content you can generate, pictures will help sell that product, or at least, you know, application videos and things like that are always helpful. But often we find that we have to generate a lot of that content ourselves, that even our suppliers don't spend a lot of time on more than 1 image, if we get that at all. So
Definitely.
I think the other challenge as well on things like, you know, if you have to have health and safety data sheets and stuff like that, keeping on top of them can be a real challenge, especially, you know, you mentioned things like Loctite, any chemicals where, you know, they slightly change the ingredient, then all of a sudden you've got to make sure you've got an up-to-date, I don't know if it's the same over your side of the pond, but cost sheets and health and safety sheets, if they slightly change the specification, certain industries, we have to make sure that we're giving them the latest health and safety documentation. And that's keeping on top of that can be a challenge, because quite often they don't tell us.
No, they
Absolutely.
don't tell us, and we have to bring in a new sheet. But one thing we do find that from a pricing standpoint, the PIM is good for is vendor pricing, and at least multi-tier costs, because usually those are, you know, common to the entire company, and we're usually getting all that data from our suppliers. So we use that to at least feed like replacement costs and pricing records for the vendors, because I realize that customer pricing is going to be all over the place, and, you know, maybe not best stored in the PIM, but at least vendor pricing is a good place to keep that consistent across systems.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
We probably could have a whole webinar on pricing strategies, matrices, whether it's the vendor pricing or the customer pricing and the tiers. But we shall move on and let's talk.
And by the way, if anyone wants to volunteer to do that webinar, give us a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like Daniel, we might be reaching out to him to volunteer for some things, right, Daniel? So Mark, why don't you talk to us a little bit about, real quick, some of the advantages. We want to try and buzz through some of these slides.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just picking up a couple of things. Probably the biggest one that you've got there is saving time on repetitive tasks. You know, especially if you're trying to manage your data with spreadsheets and things like that. You know, if you've got a PIM, and especially if you've got a PIM that's got some sort of process behind it, you know, that you can import things in a standard format, push it out to the rest of your systems in a standard format. Daniel mentioned pricing. I mean, that has been a real challenge for us because we get it in from suppliers in so many different formats, and then transferring that so that we can bring it into our ERP, which then feeds e-commerce. That's been a real pain. So, you know, having a process and cutting down these repetitive tasks is important. Again, reducing management. You know, we're all trying to do more with less nowadays. So again,
right.
You know, the more we can do, and again, if you've got a PIM that says, you know, fill these boxes in, it takes away that little bit of reliance on product knowledge. You know, because things are in a standard structure, it's much easier to treat new people.
Right. Training and becomes a little easier. I mean, sometimes you do still need to know, and the validation of the data is important. So, you know, from the product knowledge aspect, but absolutely. Mass maintenance, that's been one of our challenges. Pricing, because we actually do have pricing, customer specific pricing matrices that are pretty complex, more than just using, you know, we have quantity breaks, we have various PD records and various hierarchy and levels, and keeping pricing up to date because we are very seasonal in how we handle that. So mass maintenance is definitely something that I can appreciate.
I know we were going to have a poll, Robin, on what PIMs that people use. I don't know when that comes in this. You know, we've rehearsed it hundreds of times. I'm sure everybody appreciates that. but I know we are going to have a poll, aren't we? But I think it'll be quite. Make sure we do get that poll in before we. I can't remember where we had it scheduled.
Yeah, I think what we were going to say with that is, because that we can't have a whole list on a poll and potentially have you fill something in, we wanted you to add to the chat. If you would, that would be great, to add the PIM that you are working on, and maybe the e-commerce platform and so forth. We already had mentioned that Infor is using Rhythm and InRiver as their PIM. We are on Rock Commerce. And Rock Commerce has an intuitive, has a PIM kind of built into the product. What are you using over there, Mark?
Well, we've actually built our own, to be honest with you.
Okay.
We looked at quite a lot of different ones, and there were some great ones out there, but they either had far more than we needed, or not enough for what we needed.
Right.
But just to reiterate, if everyone, it would be great if everyone could chip in with what PIM you're using, and perhaps we can do some sort of follow-up work to maybe get some reviews on what people are using and share that with everybody, especially
Definitely.
those people that haven't made a decision. And I do know that. Infor themselves are working on their own PIM as well. I believe that's the case. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that as well.
Absolutely. Yep. This is terrific. I'm seeing various things in here. Aquino, it kind of went away. I saw Insight. I saw Informatica. I saw it's flying up. Unilog, Infor, of course, Rhythm. And so we will compile these and get a list out to you guys as after this particular webinar. So for time's sake, I think we're going to rock along here and go really quickly. What features should a good PIM have? And I guess, you know, starting with some of the things that we talked about, data. Your data needs, but also, you know, what is it that your business needs? What are you trying to achieve? Come at some of the first steps, but these are some of the things. Mark, you want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the features and
Yep. Yep. Obviously, the key thing is that it integrate, or at least talks to, all your different systems that you're using, whether that's e-commerce, suppliers, mobile apps, customers. Quite often now we're having to punch out with customers and things like that. So, they have the ability to connect to other things. I think is vital for a PIM now.
For sure.
As you mentioned on here, it's going to be easy to use. And I have seen some great PIMs with great features, but unfortunately, in my opinion, the people that you were using had to be quite technical. So
Right.
the easier it is to use, then I think that'd be great.
And I think training and the intuitive interface and training is key, because there is potentially turnover, especially if, as e-commerce has grown, folks are getting into e-commerce as a career choice, and the turnover in that, you have to really, have an interface and something that you can quickly move around in, and it's pretty intuitive. And then some of the other pieces that I think we've talked about some of this, but automating repetitive tasks, extremely key. You need to be able to have hands off and have a lot of those maintenance and repetitive tasks taken care of for you. Customization, I know in our particular PIM and our ERP platform, we have had quite a bit of customization. And I think that's one of the things to gauge. I think you can talk, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you have a homegrown system. But maybe Daniel or someone else might want to pop on and talk a little bit about some struggles with customization.
We have got a few people on here that have said they've done there's a custom. Does anyone want to volunteer to just tell us a little bit about why they went down that route?
Mm-hmm. And while we kind of get them engaged in that, we'll talk about the supporting the cross-border commerce. We are not global or international. I know there's a lot of companies who are, so these are things to consider when you're looking at what should I look for in a PIM? And of course, the flexible deployment options. And as we've seen with our ERP partner, with Infor at least, moving to the cloud. Do they support on-prem? Do they support the PaaS, the platform as a service? So you're just using their platform in the cloud. Do they support SaaS, the software as a service? And they somewhere in between? And are they growing towards one of those cloud-based applications and infrastructures? These are things to think about, because you have to integrate and you have to move, and you can't be stuck where you are. Did we find someone that would want to share?
Everyone's shy today.
I understand. Well,
I told you, next time everyone has to have a pint in their hand.
Yes.
That takes away the inhibitions, doesn't it?
It definitely helps.
Sorry, just one question that Annabella's actually asked. She's asking sort of, which is the best PIM to use. I think probably the difficulty with answering that is we're all using different ones.
Right.
But having said that, I think what might be really good, and we'll see if we can work out a way to do this, is we do some sort of survey after this event, maybe ask the people using the different PIMs, how you find it, and perhaps we'll try and share that with everybody on this call.
Yeah, right. The strengths and weaknesses, or pros and cons, of all of the particular PIMs that we find in the chat. That would be awesome. And I'll work with Gloria to distribute that, accumulate that data and distribute the survey so we can maybe help folks out. With the few minutes that we have left, I just want to whip through this product information enrichment and also optimization. Hugely important. And a couple of things that I want to say about this is the enrichment of the data is the customer experience once they arrive on the page. So I think in the future that we should probably have another webinar about data enrichment, data optimization, talking a little bit more about the things that are not specifically PIM, like SEO and some site speed analysis, optimization for mobile, getting into the details of all this stuff. But in general, I wanted to point out, basically, you have a couple of engagements with the customer once you get them to your page, what is the customer experience, the quality of the data, what keeps them there, answers their questions. If you can provide the answers to the customer's intent, it's a huge thing. And this slide kind of shares some of the things we've talked about. Images. I won't go into all the details due to time, but I think the key to this is building trust will increase engagement with your customers. And of course, engagement then will hopefully lead to conversions and growing your sales. And then talking about optimization, this is how do people find you and how do you get people to your site? And there's lots of ways to do that. There's organic, of course, which goes to on-page SEO, keyword research, those kinds of things to get your page and your page content basically satisfying those organic searches. But then there are other things that, we talk about optimizing pricing and doing pricing and competitive analysis. The site speed and the site search, huge. And optimizing for mobile. As mobile use continues to grow and grow and grow, that is a huge component. You have to be not only responsive, but optimized for mobile. Product reviews, star ratings, these are all things that the industry and customers are growing to expect and know and love. And I'm a big fan of A/B testing, whether it's a page, whether it's an ad campaign. There's all kinds of ways that you can get valuable insight by using an A/B test to really give you much more than a heat map would give you, but to give you the reality of what customers want, what they click on, and so forth. And of course, paid advertising is definitely a way to drive traffic to your site. And if you do segmentation with paid campaigns correctly, you'll get that quality traffic to the right place on your site. So there's a lot more, and I think in the future we could definitely have some webinars and dig in a lot deeper. I think these are great topics for even workshops, get a little more advantageous other than just this roundtable. But any one of these topics on these two slides could primarily be its own webinar or workshop. So anyone want to comment before we roll it back over to Gloria for finishing up with Q&A? Anyone else want to comment? Mark, you have anything to say about the enhancement optimization or before we wrap up here?
No, I think, like you say, I think we could probably talk for a couple of hours on one or two of these subjects on their own. So I think if we see what questions people have got on this call, and the other thing is, if anyone's got any questions afterwards, if anyone's too shy to ask questions online, feel free to get in touch with us.
Definitely. And with that said, I'm going to scoot back before I hand it over to before I hand it back over to Gloria. Here is our contact information. If you want to send us an email, I think we are going to accumulate all of the information that we see in the chat. And I would really love to, if you found any particular thing on topics that we talked about of interest, reach out via email to either Mark or myself or Gloria. This gives us valuable feedback as to what can we produce as far as content ourselves for these webinars, and what are you guys looking for as a group, and we'd be happy to have other folks actually do some of these webinars as well. So Daniel, we might be calling you. All right, so with that, Gloria, do you want to take it back?
Hi, excuse me, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Loud and clear.
This is a first, so we are thankful that everyone in TUG grades on a generous curve, and I cannot seem to find out how to share my screen to put in the final closing comments. But let me just first say, Mark, Robin, thank you so much for this important roundtable discussion today. And as with most of our webinars, this presentation will be available on our TUG website on the following business day. Since it's a Friday, give us the weekend. And we'd like to invite those of you who are not members of TUG to visit our website, theusergroup.org. Join us today. And for those of you who are members, please continue this discussion in the forum boards and just continue the dialogue. Remember also in our forums that you can follow any trendsetters. I would suggest also that you might want to follow both Mark and Robin and watch their posts as it relates to their day-to-day business operations and contributions. And
I've never been called a trendsetter in my life.
well, maybe not a fashion setter, but a trendsetter on the tech side for sure, Mark. But again, we want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. And as they say in Hollywood, that is a wrap.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.